Hi, Jenny here. I happen to have one more spaghetti squash left from when Cassie brought those couple home from work from someone sharing. So today we are going to make spaghetti squash with an easy meat sauce. Let's get started. For this recipe we are going to need a spaghetti squash, about 1.5 pounds of ground beef, some olive oil, 1 onion diced, 2 cloves of garlic minced, 2 carrots shredded, 2 cans of diced tomatoes, salt and pepper to taste, about half a cup of Parmesan cheese plus extra for topping, and a sprinkle of basil leaves. First we need to cut the spaghetti squash in half and scoop out all its seeds. Now squashes are really hard to cut, so what you can do is poke a couple holes in with a fork and put it in the microwave for about 5 minutes. Although this is actually going in really easily, so let me just try first. You can try first of all cutting with a knife and see if it'll go in easily or not, and then put it in the microwave if need be. Usually I haven't had much success going first off just cutting, but I want to find a spot where it's not going to roll much, where it will be pretty stable. Alright, and then we just stick our knife in and cut it down, trying to go fairly evenly. I missed a little bit, but we still have the top on there. We can cut that off. Wasn't much easier than the other squash I cut. My other one was very difficult. I had to microwave that one. I like it better when they're like this. I like to eat squash, but I partly don't eat as much of it because it is so hard to cut. Okay, and then we've got those seeds on there. Oh, I need a spoon. Hold on. I usually like to poke some holes in the squash when I'm cooking it anyways, so those fork holes will be just fine. That way as the squash is cooking, it kind of won't really explode. There may be little bits of bubbles that may come out that side. Anyways, the middle of the squash is filled with seeds, so you want to take a large spoon, scoop all of them out. If you really like to, if you like pumpkin seeds, squash seeds are also good to cook, so you can roast those. I have tried that before. It turned out okay. I used a different spice than I usually do, so a little bit different. But I kind of thought that one of the times I was doing a squash, I'm like, hey, these look like pumpkin seeds, I bet. I could roast them and eat them. That way I don't have to wait just for pumpkins and pumpkin time of the year and have pumpkin seeds. I could have squash seeds. In the meantime, depending on how fast your oven heats up, you need to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. And we'll be cooking these for about 20 minutes. Should say 20, 20. Depending on how thick your squash are, I suppose in reality it could go up to 40 minutes. We'll start with 20 and see how soft they are. But in any case, do this to both. Have you grown squash at all? I tried growing pumpkins once. That didn't really work. I have a very small garden. I don't have a lot of space to be able to have the long vines go on. When I tried the pumpkins, they were growing across my patio, and I was like, oh, yeah, they take up a lot of space. So I stick with some smaller plants like tomatoes and green beans. So I was very happy when Cassie brought home the squash and said, hey, her assistant manager has a garden and had some extra vegetables. She had a whole bunch of spaghetti squash that grew for her, and she couldn't eat it all, and so brought it in to share. So that was very nice. I got the benefit of that. Okay, so we'll put that aside and get our baking sheet. And actually, you can either take a non-stick spray and spray your pan. You can lay some aluminum foil down. That'll help with cleanup. Again, depending on how messy your stuff might be. You can take regular olive oil, drizzle it in here, and wipe it all around. Or I'm just going to do it with my sprayer, spraying the inside, making sure I get the edges really well so it's not going to stick to the pan. Spraying over the pan, so if there is any extra spraying about, it will go on the pan. Not all over my counter or anything, so that'll be good to go. Once the oven is preheated, like I said, we'll start it at 20 minutes and see if a knife will go in easily or if we'll need just a little bit more time. I double checked my recipes, and usually squash takes about 45 minutes to an hour to actually cook. But seeing as this one's just a little bit smaller and was already a little bit soft, I am going to check this one after 30 minutes and we'll go from there. So again, oven is at 400. And we'll check it at 30. While the squash is cooking, we will go ahead and work with the other ingredients. So the carrots need to be shredded. If you have a grater, go ahead and grate those on the large setting. I have a funky little grater, but it's like, I have a food processor, I have a little grating blade, so it's just easier for me to do this. They'll be a little bit smaller, but that's okay. It will go much faster, and I'll have one more thing to clean up, but that's the way it goes. So anyways, we will, you know what, I should go ahead and maybe try to cut these in half. Sure, 4 at once. The carrots are soft. All right, get these grated. That way I also have a little snack to eat while I'm at it. I have my grated carrots, so we'll put these aside. Yummy, yummy. And as long as I've dirtied this, I think I'd probably do a couple more of these so I can make some salads. For the next couple days. Usually I just chop the carrots, so it's always fun when I do shredded carrots for myself. Okay. Alright. I'll move this out of the way. I'm going to get our cutting board up next for the onion. We will go ahead and dice our onion so they can just be in regular dice shape. It doesn't need to be too small. I've made a couple recipes lately where I've had to almost pretty much mince the onion. I should get my bowl here. So yeah, I've had to cut it a lot smaller, but this can just be regular diced. All right. Is this how you dice your onions? I think I mentioned before that I've seen someone do it where they've kept the end of the onion on, so then they only cut 3/4 of the way, like through. Saying this thing where the onion wants to slide. Yeah, they only like chop it 3/4 of the way through because the end is on there and holding it all together. Then they mince it, you know, or chop it, and then you don't have to worry about the onion sliding all over. And sometimes those skins between the layers make the layers slide and not hold it together. So sometimes this works really well, and sometimes it's just kind of like, oh goodness gracious. And I have lots more to cut because they're really big pieces. And we'll be cooking them in the meat sauce, so if there are some that are sticking together, they should be able to come apart easily. I've also had it, like, was cooking something where I didn't take the onions apart much, and I wasn't cooking the onions first. I was kind of adding them in later, and I didn't break them all apart, and then I had chunks of onion. So I thought that was kind of funny. I'm like, all right. All right, we'll take care of getting some of these middle pieces out because they're just more stiff. They don't cook down well. Maybe the middle of the onion. It's just real hard. So, make sure all our pieces are fairly cut. As I saw. Do you guys have a food processor? You use it a lot? You allow your food that way? I know something else I made too, where I think about this, I'm like, oh, I could use the food processor and chop up, you know, the onion too that way. And I guess I'm more used to having onions in recipes that I've just chopped them up by hand, that I don't think about it. Whereas if I have to do like shredding, it's just easier for the machine to do the shredding than for me to try to do it. Maybe if I had a box grater, maybe that would be easier too. The one hand grater thing I have is kind of light and plasticky and moves and has the, you know, all the holes on like the one side. So if you want a particular size hole, you have to kind of really pay attention to where you're shredding it. And then it has the slicer part in there too, which is all like just in the middle of the whole thing and on the back side of it. And I was using that for the potato. What did I make? I made some like little potato crisps, and it was not giving me a full slice of potato. It was just giving me pieces. But then it was like the potatoes were almost too thick to put in my food processor, so that kind of stunk. Although it's funny because then I asked my husband afterwards, I'm like, do you know what happened to, you know, that? I mean, did you either put it away one time? Did I wash it and we had it out and you put it away? Or he's like, well, I would have put it in one of these, you know, spots. And I'm like, oh, that's where I look. That's where I would have put it. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe Cassie knows. Maybe she used it one time or something. And he's like, she's not going to know. She came home from work and I was like, hey, Cassie, do you by chance know where my little slicer is? And she was like, oh, I think it's in one of my college boxes. I'm like, oh, that's right. And she went off. She had a semester on campus. And after she decided she changed her degree and came back home and moved back home and went to school here. But in the meantime, yeah, she thought that she was going to make her own potato chips while she was in the dorm room. And so she took my slicer and probably the potato chip maker for the microwave. But in any case, yeah, well, when we moved her back, we just put a couple of her boxes just down in the basement, like with her kitchen-y type stuff or whatever, thinking that, well, okay, again, someday when she, if she, you know, moves out, if she moves to on campus or something, or, you know, when she has her own apartment, then we'll, you know, move all those boxes with her type of thing. And I'm like, oh boy, all right. So they're in the basement somewhere. I'll have to go find it. You can tell that I don't use that very often then, because she's been back home here for 3 years. I think it's thinking she just graduated, so 4-year college. That kind of funny. And then again, I had 2 years there where I was not doing a heck of a lot. went through my cancer journey, and I just spent a lot of time on the couch, not in the kitchen. So anyways, make sure these are all diced up too. I had some big pieces in here. Okay. And we have that done. Mince up our garlic. And we'll get this all cooked. This recipe really was more for having 2 squash. But I'm like, well, it sounded good. I've only got 1 squash. But it's okay to have the extra. Like the last one I did, I had 2 squash, but I did the southwestern bean recipe with the other squash. And that was very good. And same, and that recipe was for 2 squash, but I just saved the extras. In fact, I just had that, I think yesterday. I finished off some of it that I just put it on a plate and ate it the way it was. It was very good. So I figured, well, I can do the same with this. I can eat it plain, or I could make some just regular noodles and have it over noodles as opposed to having it over squash, but squash is healthier. And it's a good way of adding flavor to squash because squash doesn't have a lot of flavor. So when you're adding all this extra stuff to it, makes it taste a little better. And get some of those vegetables in that we're supposed to be getting in different ones instead of eating the same ones all the time. Try to eat some of the veggies that are, in season, stuff that's growing when it should be and should have the most flavor, taste the best. So garlic, depending on how big your cloves are and how much garlic you like. Again, same, you can add as much or as little. I like garlic, my family likes garlic, so we usually use more. These cloves are pretty big, so I think 2 will be a good amount. I haven't tried growing garlic yet. I've seen other people do it. It looks easy enough, but I think you have to plant it in the fall too, so you kind of really have to plan ahead and know that that's something you want to grow and get it done before the snow flies. I should look it up because it may be around now. I'll have to look into that. Alright, with garlic it's also good to be able to cut it up about a good 10-15 minutes before you actually need it, because it releases, you think I remember this by now, or it releases something in there. I know I've read it. I know I remember that I'm supposed to cut it up a little bit earlier than just cutting it and using it right away. I think I've even said it in another video and I looked it up and I put it in there. I'll have to do that again. If I'm remembering correctly, I think this is kind of part of like the onion family. So I'm thinking it starts with an A. But I'm not remembering the exact word, so I will let you know. But okay, I have all this stuff kind of prepped. We will start to cook our meat and add all these goodies in. We will go ahead and, over medium heat, cook our ground beef. So using a larger pan, so we can add all of our other stuff in here. Ultimately, we will put our ground beef mixture here back into the spaghetti squash and eat it that way, in its own little boat. But alternatively, if you would like, you can also obviously take the spaghetti squash out of its spaghetti half and put that in a bowl or on a plate and then cover it in the meat sauce. That would also work. this cooked up. And then we'll drain the grease afterwards. So this will help give this some flavor. Go ahead and add our onions in right away also. So they should get fairly translucent about the same time as the meat is cooked up. And at this time you can add some salt and pepper if you'd like for some seasoning. Now again, the meat with having the vegetables in here and stuff should have some flavoring. Otherwise, squash itself doesn't have a whole lot of flavoring. It kind of takes on the flavor of what you're adding to it. So a lot of times people would just eat the squash with butter and salt. That's usually the way I would eat it. My squash of choice is usually acorn squash. That's the one I mostly have. I know one of the times I was visiting my girlfriend. We were on vacation. Well, I was on vacation visiting her. She was in Arizona. And she made spaghetti squash. And I had never made that before. And I thought, oh, well, that was interesting and it was tasty. So when we went to the pumpkin farm here in our area, we started going there and stuff, and they also have different vegetables that they sell. So they have all the different squashes and stuff, and so I thought, oh, well, let me try this. So I bought myself a spaghetti squash, and I think I just made that one. I may have made one plain. Maybe not. I also bought acorn squash, so I know I have recipes for regular acorn squash, and then there was a white squash. I think they call it like a mashed potato squash. So I made that also. So it kind of tastes like mashed potatoes, but still was kind of squash-like. I'm like, okay. Again, it's white, it's different that way, but it was fairly creamy. The thing about the squash is like the acorn squash too is soft and creamy and all that, and the spaghetti squash ends up that when you run the fork through it, it looks like spaghetti noodles. So hence its name. Alright, we're going to cook this until it's no longer pink. We're getting there. Onions are getting all nice and cooked up. I like to drain the grease. You don't have to. Usually when I make anything with ground beef, I prefer to drain the grease first and then add it to whatever else I'm doing. Moving this around so you can keep checking whether there's anything that's pink. You want your meat to be cooked completely through so it doesn't harbor any bacteria in it or anything, so you don't get sick. Alright, it's looking good. So once that's finished, this drain. Looks like squash has about a minute to go, but see what we can do. Spreading grease, trying to get my onion off. There we go. I have a handy dandy little grease strainer that I'm going to put on the side here, drain it into a coffee mug in the sink. I don't think pointed that far over for you to be able to see me, maybe. Where's my, oh, a little bit. I have my strap in front of part of my lens. You can't see how far over I'm seeing. But in any case, you want to make sure that you're not draining this into anything like plastic so it doesn't melt. You don't want to pour it just down your sink because it can clog up your drains. Once it hardens up again and stuff, then it just kind of stays there and creates a blockage. Beep, beep. So we'll drain this out. Start beeping. We'll drain this off, and then I put this off to the side, and then once it hardens up, I either just dump it into the trash, or usually I put it into like a yogurt container or something like that, put it in the freezer until it's garbage day. And get it out of the house that way. Alright, let us grab my knife. Let's take these out and see if they're soft enough. I have to go a little longer. I still have my watermelons. Oh, you can't, I don't know if you can see it. My watermelon towel on here. Like one last time. Watermelon towel is one of my favorites. It's kind of nice. It reminds me of, you know, summer. And I thought, oh, we'd have some more warm weather. Today I woke up, it was 44 degrees. It was cool. Oh yeah, that's soft. That's gonna be good. So we'll turn this off and we'll let these cool for a little bit, which will be perfect. Actually, I should turn them over because last time I did not do that. They were still very warm. Yeah, so it's a nice golden brown on top. Perfect. Didn't go too long, didn't get burned. This is nice using the spat. Get it turned over. Looking cool a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so we'll get this back over the medium heat. Add our carrots. They can get a little cooked up. Get that garlic in there for flavoring. Dun, dun, dun. All in. Want it to taste delicious. Okay. I am just going to add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. The tomatoes I chose also have the basil, garlic, and oregano in them. So they also will have flavoring, which is nice. 2 cans of that. And mix it all up. And we'll go for another 5-10 minutes. So this is all well heated through. Those carrots cooked up a little bit, a little softer. But yeah, I was saying, I woke up to 44 degrees this morning and I was like, oh, I was a little cold waking up and I'm like, what the heck? And I checked the temperature and thought, okay, it's a little early for us to have that cold of weather, but I'm happy I don't have the air conditioning running. I haven't for like 2 weeks now. So that's really nice. But I was thinking about taking a walk right away first and then like doing my exercising, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna wait until like noonish when it gets to be, I think it was like 60-ish or so before I started cooking. That it's warming up a little bit out there. It to be a little bit warmer. I still haven't put a coat on. I think yesterday too I was able to walk in short sleeves. I don't know about my tank top, but I know like okay. I was already a little bit, you know, just warm moving around the house, and I thought I'm going to have the ring light on and I'm going to be cooking and it's going to be warm, so I'll wear a tank top for one of my last times here. Till probably, we'll get our Indian summer where it'll warm up again and we will have some warm days. Oh, this looks good. I'll just have that heat up. It's not too watery. Sometimes I like to rinse out my tomato cans and pour the water in, especially if I'm making a soup. Get that little extra broth. But with this going into a squash, I don't want it too watery. And there's a little bit of juice in here, but that should be good, and it may cook out a little bit as we cook it a little bit longer here. Alright. Just let that finish cooking up a little bit and get my plate ready. The meat mixture is boiling away here, so I'm sure everything is nice and warmed up and cooked enough, heated through. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. As you can see, it is a lot of mixture here. So I said this would be enough for 2 spaghetti squashes, so 4 halves. But we will go ahead and room there, I can do this. Dun, dun, dun. We will put our spaghetti half on here, and then you'll see as you run a fork through how it ends up kind of looking like spaghetti strands. Leave some in there. This is kind of flapping out. Sometimes they're a little bit stiffer so that you have a nice little boat. So tear some of this away so you'll have some spaghetti in your mouthful, but because this one's so shallow, I'm going to make a little bit of an opening in the middle so that my meat sauce doesn't go running all out. So now we'll see if we can not drop any on the stove. Nope. I dropped some. I've got a splash. I always say, this is real life. Real life cooking. Sometimes we make messes. So put as much of the mixture as you'd like in your squash. Go a little bit more. As long as I have it. Looks delicious. And then, because I can, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit more salt on there. Concentrating more on the squash part, and then we will top it with some of our cheese. If you had fresh basil, you can put some nice fresh little basil leaves on here. I think that would look nice. It tastes good. Although my tomatoes had basil in them, I will just sprinkle a little bit of basil on top. I usually put basil in my eggs in the morning and stuff, but we'll add some dry basil. And there we have it. What a delicious looking dish. The spaghetti squash with meat sauce is finished. Made me think of spaghetti, but that's kind of sort of what it is. You don't have spaghetti sauce. I suppose you could use spaghetti sauce instead of tomatoes. And then eat that way. Oh, it is still steaming. Oh, hopefully it won't be too hot. Gotta see what this is all about. How does it taste? Looks good. Tasty. I have food on my face. Very soft, very smooth. I'm gonna bite into that tomato though, so I have a taste of that. Yeah, with the meat, Parmesan. Taste a little bit of that basil. Well, it's very good. Good, good, good. I figured I would like that. Looked like it was very delicious. And as you can see, there was a lot left over. So either like juice drip down me, again, real life. Yeah, so I can either make up some noodles and have it over that. I could have it just the way it is as part of a main dish and maybe some other side vegetables or something, or I could get another spaghetti squash and eat it that way. That would be delicious too. Let me know if you like spaghetti squash and what is the way that you like to cook it. I am going to go finish enjoying my lunch. You guys keep it positive. Go make it a great day. Bye-bye.